Hi everyone, Sayyid Imran Bukhari with the Global Mind. This month, the CIE has released IGCSE O-Level and A-Level result for May-June 2026 series. Like all previous years, students and parents continue to ask the same basic questions. What is grade thresholds? On what criteria does CIE decide these thresholds? Why does CIE need to do it? But the most common confusion is a student who took his math exam syllabus D in 2025 asked why CIE in paper 22 gave him B grade on 77 while gives A grade for 76 to someone in 2026. Isn't injustice unfair? In today's session, we're going to take a deeper look into these questions and try to find some answers. We try to settle issues that is bothering students and parents regarding these grade thresholds. So what are grade thresholds? CIE defines grade thresholds as the minimum number of marks that a candidate needs to achieve to be awarded a particular grade in a paper or in a subject. So Cambridge tells you how much of marks you need to take in a particular component or a whole subject to get A, B, C, D grades, etc. These marks are not fixed. It varies from subject to subject, from variant to variant, and from year to year. Another question, why CIE does it? According to Cambridge, every year in each exam series, the aim is to set each threshold in the right place so that it is no more difficult and no less difficult to obtain each grade than it was in the previous year. So, in order to set grade thresholds, every year CIE needs to scrutinize the previous year result as well. In other words, 2026 exam grade threshold depends on 2025 exam result as well. Question: does CIE set the threshold before the examination? The answer is no. Grade threshold is always set at the end of exam marking and not before. To set grade thresholds, they need raw marks and therefore couldn't be done before exam marking. Cambridge says grade thresholds are not adjusted in line with the ability of the students, but in line with the demand of the question paper in relation to the assessment criteria. In other words, these thresholds are set on the basis of paper difficulty. When a paper is harder than usual, a raw mark distribution shifts downward, leaving most students scoreless. CIE adjusts the grade thresholds downward to compensate so that achieving a specific grade requires proportionally the same level of performance relative to the cohort. When a paper is easier, thresholds move upward. So what we know is that grade thresholds are determined after every exam series through a process which involves statistical analysis, expert examiners' judgment, and year-on-year consistency standards. Apparently, it looks simple, but one thing makes it complicated, and that is expert examiner judgment. This expert judgment is very subjective, and we may not know what does it mean or how this judgment is exercised. How CIE does it? To get a better view, let's split the grade thresholds up into 4 steps. Step 1. Once the exams are over, the scripts are collected for marking. Once the papers are checked, all marks are initially raw marks. Raw marks are which actually the students have got. Step 2. The CIE put the raw marks through a statistical analysis for every paper or subject and compare it with the previous year. From raw marks, they could get an idea that if a particular paper or papers were difficult as compared to the previous year or easy. On this, they set the grade boundaries. For example, for 2026 May-June exam series, they will compare the marks of different subjects and paper with those of May-June 2025. Step 3. Setting up the threshold. At this stage, the CIE is in a position to set minimum marks for different grades like A star, A, B, C, D, and E. The CIE published this grade threshold on their official website for each exam series. Step 4. Grades are awarded. Every candidate's raw marks in a particular subject is compared to the threshold. Marks at or above the threshold on the grade. 6. Does CIE set thresholds for aggregate marks or component-wise? They do it for both. The grade threshold table shows the thresholds for each component and for each possible combination of components. However, the candidate's syllabus grade is determined by comparing the total number of marks a candidate achieves in all their components. For some syllabuses, they apply a weighting factor to the component thresholds before adding them together. This is to make sure that each component matches its weighting shown in the syllabus. For example, we take the example of O-level history with the code 2147. Here we can see that each component has a different weightage. The CIE grade threshold take care of this as well. Another thing relating with grade threshold is the grade A star, which does not exist as a component grade. The A star grade threshold is calculated relative to the A and B thresholds for the combination of components and the maximum mark in a particular subject. In addition to grade threshold, students also get confused in some other terms such as grade boundary, raw mark, weighted mark, and maximum available mark. Let's see what these terms mean. Grade boundary. It is often used interchangeably with threshold. The boundary mark is basically between two adjacent grades. For example, in 2026 O-level Math Syllabus D result, grade threshold for A grade in paper 1-2 is 71. If candidate gets 70, means 1 mark less than the set threshold, he falls in B grade. This is grade boundary. Raw mark. The actual marks scored by a candidate on a specific paper before any weighting. We have already discussed weightage in history case above. Example, a student scores 127 out of 200 in math. That is his raw mark for that subject. It could be component wise as well. Weighted marks. Raw marks adjusted to account for different paper weightings in the overall qualification. Maximum available mark. The total marks of a component or subject. It is the maximum marks of a paper or qualification. For example, O-level math, paper 1 carries 100 marks, paper 2 carries 100 marks as well. So when we add 100 plus 100, so 200 is the maximum available marks to the students to get. So the CIE grading system is very fluid and varies from year to year. Although they have one fixed grading scale for O and A levels as well, but it provides approximate guides. Grade threshold is the final grades. But the most common source of confusion after result day is grade boundaries. A student who scored 71 out of 100 in 2026 exam got A, but another student who got 72 in 2025 exams got B. More marks, different grade. Why? Parents blame children and children blame themselves for not working hard. But reality is different. A student who expected an A but received a B is not always a student who didn't prepare or work hard. In most cases, the gap between their mark and the A threshold is caused by the system which the CIE follows. The system gets brutal, what we call mark clustering. Candidates lose A grade with a margin of just 1 to 3 marks. In order to understand why did a student get a B instead of an A, let's take the example of Mathematics Syllabus D 4023. All right, so guys, you can see now this table which is on the screen, and basically it shows component grade thresholds for mathematics syllabus D of May-June 2026 examination, and it shows grade thresholds for a minimum marks required to get a particular grade. So when we look at this table, you can see that for threshold for component, basically students are taking this combination. Some of the students take this combination 1 2 and 2 2, and some students get this combination of 1 3 and 2 3. So if we take the example of 1 2 and 2 2 first. So for paper 1 or component 1 2, which we call, in order to get A grade, you need to have 71 marks. Getting B grade requires 50 marks, C 30, D 24, and E 18. So it means that any marks less than 71, like if you get 70 marks, so you will be put in B grade. So this is basically the main thing, that 1 marks is very important. 71, 70, if you get 70, you will be put in B. If you get 49 here, you will get B in C. If you get 29 here, so you will be put in D, and in this way. And the same is the situation with component 2 2. Anything less than 76 will put you in B grade, anything less than 54 will put you in C grade, 32 in D grade, and in less than 25 will put you in C grade. So what is the bottom line here? The bottom line is that you miss a particular grade with the margin of 1 to 2 marks, right? This is the first thing. And the second thing is that if you look at this, so 71 is a threshold for paper 1 2, and 76 is a threshold for paper 22, component 22. So it means that the paper 22 was quite or moderately easier. That is why the threshold is high. So when the threshold is high, it means that the paper were moderately easy, and if the threshold is lower, then it means that the paper was quite, or moderately, it depends on the marks margin. If the margin is big, so it means that it is, the paper was very difficult, or moderately difficult when the margin is 1 or 2 marks. Here, this is basically the combination of both component 1 and component 1 2 and component 2 2. So the total marks are 200. You have to get 173 to get A star. You have to get 147 to get A, and 144 for B, and like this. And similarly, the important thing here is that A star is basically available only for the aggregate marks, means the combination of both components. Only then they find out the A star. In component wise, if you look here, they don't mention this, A star, the threshold for the A star. The reason is that they do it basically on the combination of all the components. So this is basically the first thing. Second thing is that this is basically the this is the thresholds, the grade thresholds for the year 2025. So the same thresholds have been given here: 72 for A, 52, 32 for C, like this, and then this is the combination which we are discussing. So for 22, 78, 57, 36, 29, 22. So you can see over here. Another important thing is, which you should note, is that component 1, 2, or paper 2, what we call paper 1, sorry. Paper 1 and paper 2, if we compare it, so paper 2 is always easy as compared to paper 1. Because the threshold over there in 2026 and here as well is quite high. 78 is high. It means that the paper was easier, and 72 means the paper was moderately a little tough. So this is another analysis which we can see as well, that you should always focus on more on paper component 1 2, because it is tough. It looks from this result that it looks tough. For students, paper 2 2, they are getting marks in this, not only in 2026 but also they did in 2025. And when I checked 2024 and 23, so the same trend was there as well. So you have to keep this in mind as well. Now, the most important thing is here. I mean, this is component 1 2. I have made this table. to compare 2026 and 2026 thresholds. So for A grade in 2026, the threshold was 71, but in 2025 it was 72. For B, 50 this year, 52 previous year. For C, like this. And so you can see. Now, what is the difference? How many marks difference is here? So once again, it's 1 to 2 marks. I mean, it's 71, 72, 1 mark, 50, 52, 2 marks, 30, 32. So these 1 and 2 marks are very important. You have to keep it in mind. These are very important, and this is something which make a difference to your grade. So you should focus on it in future when you are preparing. So you should take note of it that always it's basically the competition is for 1 to 2 marks for grade, high grade and low grade. This is for component basically 2 2. You can see 76 in 2026, 78 in 2025, then 54, 57. The difference is you can see, except here, I think here it is 4 marks, yes, and here it's once again 4 marks. Here it's 3 marks, here 2 marks difference, and here it's 3 marks. So on an average we can say that the difference is 1 to 4 marks, and in most cases 1 to 2 or 3 marks. So this is another important thing which you should keep in mind. The combination of if we compare the both for 1 2 and 2 2 components in 2026, 173 was required to get A star. In 2025 it was 175. For A, 147. In 2025 it was 150. This year for B it is 104. In 2025 it was 109, and things like that. So this is basically you can see once again the mark difference, right? And this is component 1 3. So the same pattern is basically going on. This is 74, and so 2 mark difference, 54 same, and 2 marks and same, and 1 mark. This is component 2 3, so we don't need to go into that because the same trends are over here, 76, 78. So it's 2 marks, 1 mark, no mark difference, no threshold difference here as well, only 1 mark. Then this is for one component 1 3 and 2 3, so 2 marks. Here it's big difference, 4 marks for A, 1 mark, 2 mark difference, no difference at all, 2 mark. So from this we can draw certain conclusions, right? Number 1 conclusion is that it is always 1 to 3 marks on an average which affect your grade. Second is that component 1 2 or 2 2 is moderately tough as compared to no, it's not like this. Component 1 2 is moderately tough, and component 2 2 is moderately easy. So in future you should put more focus on this one. The third thing is that as 2025 exams were easier, and that is why threshold was high. So 2026 the paper were moderately tough. So this is another conclusion which we can draw from these tables. So how to avoid losing grade in CIE by dodging their grade threshold system? First thing is practice under strict rules. Time your past papers. The student should do full papers under real exam time limits. Most of the students miss marks due to the time mismanagement. They know the answer but exhaust their time. Spending too much time on early low-value structured sections and rushing or leaving high-mark extended writing essay questions incomplete. Then easy marking. Students don't use the official mark scheme. They award themselves generous points for vague answers. In school exams, teachers give easy marks as compared to what candidates deserve under CIE mark scheme. School parents pressure to show good results. In humanities, the common mistakes: ignoring command words. Students write long explanations when the prompt asks to state or identify, or merely naming a factor when asked to explain or discuss. Inability to differentiate between description, explanation, analyzing, and evaluating the question. Providing 3 points when a question asks for two factors or information. Extra writing is not awarded by the examiner. Rather, extra listed items can lose you marks if they are wrong or contradictory. Then we have the lack of source inferences. Many students fail to explicitly reference data, diagrams, or tables provided in the exam paper when the prompt explicitly commands use the information from the source. In science, mistakes are quite different. Omitting intermediate working. Students leave out formula steps or intermediate calculations on calculate questions, which means losing crucial method marks if the final arithmetic is wrong. Even in cases, if the final answer is wrong, zero method marks can be awarded. Unit and rounding errors. Dropping units, misusing significant figures, or rounding off values midway through a multi-step calculation. Listing properties of two different organisms, chemical structures are circled separately instead of using direct comparative language. For example, where is, both, in contrast, etc. Forgetting to include units on the axis labels or final calculation answers. Misreading graph scales or failing to quote coordinate data from a provided grid to support an answer. These are all mistakes which cost the students few marks. Cambridge International Principal Examiner report highlights that candidates scoring a B instead of A in Cambridge sciences like biology, chemistry, and physics typically lose those crucial 3 to 6 boundary marks not from the total ignorance of the topic but from recurring execution errors, which can be avoided by saving up a few marks to escape grade threshold trap. Thanks for watching.